Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. This video is part of the YouTube series that I'm making called Zero to Hero Business Central. In this series, I already uploaded few videos on my YouTube channel. In this particular video, we are going to learn about array functions in Business Central. So whenever you are working with arrays in Business Central, you might need some functions to do some operations on arrays. So here you can find array length, compress array, copy array functions on arrays data type. So when you work with array data type, a number of functions can be applied to that data type. Like if you wanted to find out the length of the array, then you can go for array length function. And if you wanted to compress array, meaning you wanted to move all the non-empty elements to the beginning of the array, then you can go for compress array. And if you wanted to copy one array into another array, or you wanted to copy sub array of an array into another array, then you can go for copy array function. We are going to see all of these functions in action in code, so do not worry about that. So I have employee setup page which I have created in my previous videos. Also, I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code. In here I have employee setup page, and we also have employee operations code unit. So first let me actually create one more action button in the employee setup page called array functions. Let me call this as array array functions. And actually, let me remove this particular code. We are going to come back over here, and we are going to actually create this array functions in the employee operations code unit. So let me go in here. Let me actually create one more procedure. Let me use the shortcut the procedure. We are going to create internal procedure, and this procedure is actually called as array functions. And let me actually define one array which is of type text. So we can say employee names, and let me actually give it array 5 of text. So the length of the array is 5, and we are creating as a text type. So let me actually take one more variable called integer to actually traverse through the array. And let me actually define this array. Let me give values in this particular array. Let me say first is Tulasidas. Why it is giving an error? So we need to have the assignment operator, and let me actually define two more. Let me say this as 2, and let me say Ramesh. And now let me actually go in here, and let me copy Suresh Ramesh. Let me say this as Suresh. And now let us actually use the first function that we have, which is called as array length. So it is going to give us the length of the array. So let us actually find out what is the length of this particular employee names array of type text. So let me go in here, and let me actually do just message, and the length of the array is let me say %1, and let me actually say array length. Then let's pass the employee names. So let us actually call this function from employee setup page. Let me take this and let me paste in here. And now let me actually do this. This is the array functions. So let me go over here, and let me actually paste in here. And now let me actually publish this, and let us actually see what is the length of the array. So here we have given only 3 elements, but the maximum length of the array is 5. So let us actually find out what is the length of the array. So let me refresh this once. Now let me actually click on array functions. Now here you can see the length of the array is 5. We have given only 3 elements, but now let us actually traverse through the elements and let us find out what are inserted at number 4 and number 5 index. So let me go in here, let me do for I equals to 1 to array length, which is let me give the employee names, and let me to do, we are going to find out the length, like all the elements. So message the element at index percentage 1 is, let me actually give the percentage 2, and let's say we are going to give I, and let me say employee names of the particular index. Now let's actually publish this and let us see how that actually looks. So we are going to find out the elements at index 4 and index 5. Basically they will be initialized with empty values, because whenever we declare an array, it is going to have empty values of that particular type, which is text. So it is going to give us empty values in 4 and 5. So let me go in here, let me actually refresh this once, and let us now find out the array length is 5 and the element at index 1 is Tulasidas. So that is correct. Now let me see, the element at index 2 is Ramesh, that is correct. The element at index 3 is Suresh, so that is also correct. The element at index 4 is empty. The element at index 5 is also empty because it has initialized with empty values at 4 and 5, because we did not give any values to it. So that is array length function. How we can use that array length to find out the length of the array. We can also use that in the for loop to traverse through the elements in a particular array. Now let me go to the other function, which is compress array. Basically, if you see the definition, moves all the non-empty elements to the beginning of the array. So let me actually show you that. Let me actually say this as empty, and or we can just say like, we can just move this to 4. So basically now the element at the third index becomes empty, but at fourth index we have Suresh. And if I just do this one, let's actually do this. Let me actually comment this code out and let us see how that actually looks. Basically, it should give us three values, but at index 3 it is going to be empty. So let me go in business central and let me refresh this once, and now let me actually click on array functions. Now here you can see at the first index we have the correct element, which is Tulsidas. At the second index we have Ramesh, but at the third index it is empty because we do not have any element at index 3. But at fourth index we have Suresh. So let me go in here. Now here you can see the element at index 4 is Suresh, and the element at index 5 is empty because we did not initialize any value. Now let me actually do the compress array, which is going to actually move all the non-empty elements to the beginning of the array. If you see in this example, at 1 and 2 we have Tulsidas and Ramesh, but at 3, at the third index, we have an empty value. So if I do compress array, basically that should move the Suresh to the third index, and the fourth and fifth index should be empty. So let me actually do that. So first do compress array, and let me actually pass the employee names, and now actually take this again and let me actually print it here. So here basically it should give us the elements as I have in here, but in here it should actually give us the output after compressing the array, because I am calling the compress array over here. So let me actually publish this and let us see how that actually looks. So let me go in business central again, let me refresh this once, and now let me actually click on array functions. So the element at index 1 is Tulsidas, element at index 2 is Ramesh, element at index 3 is, because we are now looping through this for loop, so it is going to give us as per how we have originally without compressing. So the element at index 3 is empty, the element at index 4 is Suresh, the element at index 5 is empty. Now we are going to loop through this particular array. It is produced after compressing the array. So here we should have the newly compressed array. So the element at index 1 is Tulsidas, the element at index 2 is Ramesh. Now here you can see the magic. The element at index 3 is Suresh. Basically it was at the index 4, but after doing the compression it was moved to the beginning. That means it was moved at index 3, and we are going to have the value at index 3. But at index 4 you can see it becomes empty, and at index 5 it is already empty. So compress array basically moves all the non-empty elements in an array to the beginning of the array. So that is compress array. And now we have copy array. Basically, what does the copy array do? It copies one array into another array, or subarray of one array into another array. So let us actually see that in code. Let me go in here. Let me actually take one more, say, duplicate employee names, and it should also be array of 5 of text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all the elements of this particular array into this array. So let me actually comment this particular code out because we don't need that, and let me actually go in here and let me write copy array. And first, if you see the definition of copy array, copies one or more elements in an array to a new array. So first the parameter should be new array, and the second parameter should be the old array from which we wanted to copy. And if I wanted to give the position from which element I wanted to copy, like how many elements I wanted to copy, that also I can specify. So let's first actually give the first new array. So that is going to be the duplicate array, and in second parameter I am actually going to give employee names, which is my original array. And from which position I wanted to copy, I wanted to copy from the first position. I wanted to copy all the elements, so it is going to copy all the elements. And let me actually uncomment this particular code out, but here let me actually use duplicate employee names. So in here, basically what I am doing is I am copying employee names into duplicate employees, and in here I am actually showing those values in the message form. So let me publish this and let us see how that actually looks. So let me go to Business Central. Let me refresh this again. Now let me actually click on array functions. So first, here you can see it has copied this particular employee names into duplicate employees. So that's why it is going to give us same values as the employee name. At index 1 we have Tulsidas, at index 2 we have Ramesh, at index 3 we have empty element, at index 4 we have Suresh, at index 5 we have empty value. So let me actually show that. Let me actually copy this and let me put it over here just to show you that this is actually going to initialize duplicate employee names with empty values. So we are here doing the copy array, but here we just going to have empty values. So let me actually publish this, and at each index it should have empty values. So let me go in here, let me refresh this again, and now let me click on array functions. Now here you can see till index 5 it is just going to have empty values. Once the copy array is done, it is going to copy the elements from the original array into the second or duplicate array. So that's all that I have about array functions in Business Central. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll be uploading more videos in this particular series called Zero to Hero Business Central. If you don't want to miss them, you should definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.